Hello, hello, hello. So, as promised, I said I'd do some sort of lessons for you guys for you to watch, and hopefully I can do one, see what you think, and you can tell me whether you want me to do some more of these. So, I'm just going to share my screen here, and I'm going to go to here. Okay, and then we're going to go slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so you've asked for the structure and function of the respiratory system as the starter, just to get your head round what's going on. So let's have a little look at this. So if I click forward, learning outcomes for this are that the learner will understand structure and function of the respiratory system. And I want to separate for you the respiratory system and the cardiovascular system. And this presentation does do that, and there are some things in there where it does that for you. So I'll leave it for there, but they are linked. They are inextricably linked, okay? They have to go together, they work together, but it's good to understand them as separate things first, then you should hopefully understand how they then fit together. So we've got all of our assessment criteria here and things that you're going to learn about, and obviously this is going to help you with your theory exam. So jumping into it. So we've got our first one, which is composition of air. Just so you know, these are on the system as well. So if you go on to Shobi, go into the anatomy and physiology section, I believe all these PowerPoints are uploaded on here for you to, you can work through them with me or and go back over them as well. So what does it tell you about oxygen and carbon dioxide inhaled and exhaled? So we inhale and we exhale. We inhale to take in oxygen, okay, and we exhale to get rid of waste products. And on here, it's just showing you the percentages of the breakdown of the air that we take in and what we do with it. Okay, so nitrogen comes in at 79%, goes out at 79%. So nitrogen is the biggest quantity of single, what would you call it, single gas that we inhale. But we don't use any of it. So it comes in, it goes out, and the percentage doesn't change. Oxygen, as you imagine, changes. So 21% of the air we breathe in is oxygen, and 17% we breathe out because we've utilized 4% of it. And then carbon dioxide is in the same ratio but inverted. So you've got less than 1% is inhaled, so a very small amount of carbon dioxide inhaled, and then exhaled you've got 4%, which is obviously you can see it's a 4% jump compared to how it was when it came in. So it's going up. So you're emitting 4%. Okay, so I hope that gives you an idea about what's changing as you inhale and exhale. So we breathe in oxygen, we use it for energy, we use it to create energy as part of that pathway, and that will be in a different lecture, and we have talked about that before. That's to do with energy systems. And we breathe out more carbon dioxide than we breathe in because it's a waste product from the energy system. So from us generating ATP and energy, we generate carbon dioxide. So we need to get rid of that, otherwise we're going to get a buildup of lactic acid and the body's not going to function. So how does air or oxygen enter the body? Fairly straightforward. I should imagine most of you guys understand this. We breathe in and it's then circulated around the body. So we're going to have a look at how that happens. So here's a little infographic of what happens. And air enters the body, okay, through the pharynx. So we breathe it in through our nose and through our mouth. Those systems connect together for it to go into the pharynx, then into the larynx, and then into the trachea, as you can see, feeding down into the lungs. And the diaphragm is part of the respiratory system because it allows us to create a pressure change, which allows us to take in air, okay? And then I don't know why they put the nose last, but breathe out through the nose, or in through the mouth and the nose, and out through the mouth and the nose. And it's circulated around the body using our circulatory system. So it's breathed in, then through a process called diffusion, oxygen passes from the lungs into the bloodstream and gets passed around the body. Okay, so, excuse me, I'm getting attacked by the cat. So it goes in through the mouth, nose, into the lungs. Then we get through a process of gaseous exchange into the bloodstream, and from there it then goes into it goes into the bloodstream, and then from there it gets pumped around the body by the heart. The oxygen gets used, and then it gets pumped back to the lungs again to be exchanged back into the lungs and to get rid of the carbon dioxide. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. So kind of this is your head end. These are your lungs, okay, heart, and then the rest of the body. That's kind of a very common diagram that you'll see when we're talking about this. So it gets exchanged here. Look, you can see here, oxygenated blood, and then it gets pumped around the body, oxygenated, then gets used by the body, becomes deoxygenated, comes back into the lungs and gets breathed out, and then new oxygenated blood comes back in and the cycle starts again. So where are the lungs located and what's the function of lungs? I think that diagram kind of gives it away, right? And you can see that the lungs are located in the center of the chest. Now, actually here, they're actually showing the lungs as being a little bit low. Quite often, they will extend up all the way up to our collarbones, okay? So, but they are protected by the rib cage in general, all right? So they'll extend up to the collarbones and the pleura of the lungs. So the outside of the lungs will sometimes go just above the collarbones as well, okay? So there's not actually, when you learn about it, there's not actually a lot in between the lungs and the rest of the body, okay? So we've got to be really careful, especially with things like techniques like acupuncture, dry needling, that the needles aren't actually going in and potentially causing damage to the lungs. There we go. Rib cage or thoracic cavity. Their function is to take in oxygen and remove carbon dioxide. And here's a little practical activity you can do. You can place your hand on your rib cage, breathe in and out a few times, and what are you feeling? Okay, and hopefully what you're feeling is that as you breathe in, the rib cage expands, and as you breathe out, the rib cage decreases in size, and this is or contracts, and this is also linked to the diaphragm that sits underneath. So let's have a look at this. So here we go. So we've got the diaphragm underneath, and we've got the sternum and the ribs and the intercostal muscles, and they're all going to work as part of the breathing mechanism. So with the mechanics of breathing, what we've got here is we've got a diagram showing what happens. So the diaphragm sits about here on this line here, this resting line. And what happens is when we breathe in, the diaphragm drops and pulls down. Okay, and what that does is that changes the internal pressure inside of the lungs, and it draws air in. So not only are we breathing in, but when we breathe in, the diaphragm pulls down and it inflates the lungs. Our rib cage expands, and we can do forced breathing by using the muscles, our intercostal muscles, to help expand the rib cage to allow that to happen. And then when we breathe out, the diaphragm relaxes and goes back up towards the resting diaphragm line, and that helps push the air out. Okay, so we breathe in, diaphragm contracts and descends, intercostal muscles contract, rib cage expands, lungs inflate and fill with air. Then we breathe out, the opposite happens. So expiration, diaphragm relaxes and rises, rib cage returns to normal, and lungs deflate and the air is removed. Okay, I don't know if they're going to talk about this on here. It doesn't, but you change the pressure, and that's what causes the air to rush in. So what happens when you breathe in, that diaphragm pulls down, and it means that the pressure inside of the lungs is lower than the outside air. So the air rushes in to fill that gap. And then when you breathe out, it switches. Okay, so the pressure inside is greater than the pressure outside, and the air rushes out. So these are the things that help us with assisting with our breathing. Otherwise, it would be a constant, well, it kind of is as well, but a constant muscular contraction, which would then, fatigue the body and take up a lot of energy. So what structures will air pass through in the lungs? So we've got the anatomy of the lungs themselves this time. All right, and it's a fairly simple idea here, that we've got the trachea, and air is going to come down this trachea, and then we've got a gradually shrinking size of pipes, basically, that the air is then going to pass through. So then to the bronchus and to the bronchioles, so they're getting smaller, and then down to the alveoli, which are the smaller, and you can see them highlighted in the little diagram down here. Okay, and they are the ones that are surrounded by capillaries that have got thin walls, so that oxygen and carbon dioxide can pass in between the structures of the alveoli and the capillaries of the bloodstream, so we can get those the gases in and out. I probably just jumped over myself here. So here's a more zoomed in view. So you can see that the alveoli are just these little structures like cauliflowers with these little holes in so that the air can get through. And oxygen passes from the alveoli into the capillaries. Again, like I say, through a process of diffusion, and carbon dioxide passes from the capillaries into the alveoli, and it just, again, this circular motion that it's creating. So you can see here bronchiole, then it goes to the alveoli, and then to the capillaries. Okay, alveoli and gaseous exchange. So small air sacs found at the end of each bronchiole are the site for gaseous exchange by diffusion. So this is one thing moving from one substance of high concentration to an area of low concentration, a bit like the pressure with the lungs and the air rushing in. So where you've got high concentration, it will then rush towards the lower concentration. Here goes a little diagram of the gaseous exchange. So you've got blood flow. So this is the capillary down here. Okay. And here's your CO2 molecules here. And they diffuse back in to the alveoli, and new oxygen comes in. Lovely little diagram there for you. So where will oxygen in the pulmonary capillaries travel to? So it's going to get pumped around the body. Okay, so it's going to get pumped to working muscles to get used. And what happens to the carbon dioxide in the alveoli? Hopefully it gets distributed and taken back out of the body. And to explain the journey, okay, so here's a pair task. You can do this task if you want. Explain the journey. It's quite good to draw a diagram and then maybe draw out where the how it comes in through here, and explain it through a diagram and label your diagram, and then have a look at it, see if it's working, if it's right. If not, have a look at your manual, look at it, cover it over, and then try and maybe relabel the bits you missed until you can label the whole diagram without looking. So here's the journey of the air, here's the answer. Okay, so you can have a look through this. Okay, it's fairly straightforward. Again, it's just remembering which parts are which, because it's going to come in through the nose and mouth, down, 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 all the way into the lungs, all the way to the capillaries, back out, all the way back up. Yeah, so it's quite a long process, and trying to remember all of these, obviously there's a lot of information there, but just keep drawing that diagram and that will really help. So there's some more quiz questions, things you can do for yourself here. I'll leave the screen here for a second just so you can take this in. But again, this PowerPoint is on Shobi, so you can have a look. So a little review of what we've just gone through. Okay, it's a nice quick one, but hopefully it's given you an idea about the respiratory system. So we've looked at the location of the lungs, described the function and the structure, and then we've identified the main muscles involved in breathing. So we talked about the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles, and path of air, and described the process of gaseous exchange. Okay, so let me go back to my main screen. Okay, it's a bit of a shock. Oh, thank you very much, guys. So that's our first one of our recorded lectures. Please let me know what you think. Hopefully it's helped you, and I will upload this to Shobi so that you can go back over it and go through the PowerPoint maybe at the same time whilst watching the video, and I will see you on the next one.